has always been about standards. And unfortunately, because of some of the people that have been in political power for the last 4 years, priorities other than standards, lethality, and meritocracy have driven decision-making.
I'm quoting you from the podcast. Women shouldn't be in combat at all. Where is the reference to standards, that they should be there if they can carry, if they can run? I don't see that at all, Mr. Hegseth. What I see is there's a
Senator Elizabeth Warren openly challenged Defense Secretary nominee Pete Hegseth over a long record of statements about women in the military. Statements she argued fundamentally disqualify him from overseeing a force that includes hundreds of thousands of women in uniform. Before we go any further, subscribe now. We do not just replay moments from Capitol Hill. We explain what they mean and why they matter.
Thank you, Mr. Hegseth. Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Hegseth, thank you. Thank you for your service. So if you're confirmed as Secretary of Defense, you will oversee our military, including about 250,000 women who currently serve on active duty in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Space Forces, and the Marines. And I have serious concerns that your behavior toward women disqualifies you from serving in this role. Now, I've been trying to get answers from you for quite some time on this. You haven't wanted to meet or to answer any of my questions, so we'll just have to do it here and dive in. I want to pick up on some of the questions asked by Senators Shaheen and Gillibrand and Hirono, and I just want to make sure we have a list of some of the facts that I think are undisputed. I'm not going to talk about anonymous sources. I'm just going to quote you directly. We've got the video. We've got it in print. So going back to January 2013, you told a Fox News interviewer that women in the military simply couldn't measure up to men in the military, saying that allowing women to serve in combat roles would force the military to lower the bar. You picked up on that same theme in 2015, making remarks on Fox News, referring to women in combat as, quote, it would erode standards. June 2024, you said on Ben Shapiro's podcast, quote, women shouldn't be in combat at all. And then, of course, we've talked about it in 2024. You published a book, and you say on page 26 of your book, we need moms, but not in the military, especially in combat units. Page 48 of your book, you claim that women should not be in combat roles, because men are distracted by women. And then 10 weeks ago, you appeared on the Sean Ryan show and said, I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. Now, I presume you recall making all these statements?
Senator, I'm not familiar with the article you're pointing to in 2013, but it underscores my argument completely, because in that 2013 argument, I was talking about standards. Standards are what it's always been about, Senator.
Let's not have this same fight again.
Always been about Senate
I've quoted you directly. We've got the video. We're happy to show it. But I want to be clear here. For 12 years, you were quite open about your views, and your views were consistently the same. Women are inferior soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and guardians. And in case anyone missed the point, and these are your words from 10 weeks ago, women absolutely straight up should not be permitted to serve in combat. And I notice on each of these quotes, those are said without qualification. It's not by how much you can lift or how fast you can run. They don't belong in combat, period, or your words, straight up. And then on November 9th, 2024, just 32 days after your last public comment saying that women absolutely should not be in combat, you declared that, quote, some of our greatest warriors are women, and you support having them serve in combat. Now, that is a very, very big about face in a very, very short period of time. So help me understand, Mr. Hegseth, what extraordinary event happened in that 32-day period that made you change the core values you had expressed for the preceding 12 years?
Senator, again, I very much appreciate you bringing up my comments from 2013, because for me, this issue has always been about standards. And unfortunately, because of some of the people that have been in political power for the last 4 years, priorities other than standards, lethality, and meritocracy have driven decision-making.
I'm quoting you from the podcast. Women shouldn't be in combat at all. Where is the reference to standards? That they should be there if they can carry, if they can run. I don't see that at all, Mr. Hegseth. What I see is that there's a 32-day period in which you suddenly have another description about your views of women in the military. And I just want to know, what changed in the 32 days that the song you sang is not the song you come in here today to sing?
Senator, the concerns I have and the concerns of many have had, especially in ground combat units, is that in pursuit of certain percentages or quotas, standards have been changed. And that makes the combat more difficult for everybody involved.
Let me make a suggestion about what happened in that 32 days. You got a nomination from President Trump. Now, I've heard of deathbed conversions, but this is the first time I've heard of a nomination conversion. And I hope you understand that many women serving in the military right now might think that if you can convert so rapidly your long-held and aggressively pursued views in just 32 days, that 32 days after you get confirmed, maybe you'll just reverse those views and go back to the old guy who said straight up, women do not belong in combat. Now, Mr. Hegseth, you have written that after they retire, generals should be banned from working for the defense industry for 10 years. You and I agree on the corrosive effects of the revolving door between the Pentagon and defense contractors. It's something I would have liked to talk to you about if you'd come and been willing to visit with me. But the question I have for you on this is, will you put your money where your mouth is and agree that when you leave this job, you will not work for the defense industry for 10 years?
Senator, it's not even a question I've thought about because it's not one. You can think about it right now. It's not one. My motivation for this job
I understand
has never
that. I
been
just
about
need
what
a
could
yes or no
conceivably
here.
come next.
Time is short. I just need a yes or no.
I would consult with the president about what the policy should be at the Defense Department.
In other words, you're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years. But you're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
You'll be the one, let us just be clear, in charge of the generals. So you're saying sauce for the goose, but certainly not sauce for the gander?
I would want to see what the policy of the president is.
I'll bet you would.
Thank you, Senator Warren. Senator Tuberville.
Warren began by grounding the moment in reality. If confirmed, Hegseth would oversee the Army, Navy, Air Force, Space Force, and Marines, including roughly 250,000 women currently serving on active duty. Warren said plainly that she has serious concerns that his behavior and long-held views toward women make him unfit for that responsibility. She made clear this was not about rumors or anonymous accusations. She said she would rely entirely on Hegseth's own words, on video, in print, and in his own book. Warren then walked through more than a decade of statements. In 2013, Hegseth told Fox News that allowing women into combat roles would force the military to lower standards. In 2015, he repeated the same argument, saying women in combat would erode standards. In 2024, on Ben Shapiro's podcast, he said women should not be in combat at all. In his book, he wrote that the military needs mothers, but not in combat units, and argued that women distract men in combat environments. Just 10 weeks before the hearing, Hegseth again stated publicly that women should not serve in combat roles, period. Warren emphasized that none of these statements included caveats about individual performance or objective qualifications. They were categorical. According to Warren, for 12 years his position was consistent. Women simply did not belong in combat. Subscribe if you want coverage that breaks down what nominees actually believe, not just what they say once they are under oath. Then came the turning point. Warren pointed out that on November 9, 2024, just 32 days after his most recent statement opposing women in combat, Hegseth suddenly declared that some of America's greatest warriors are women, and that he supports their service in combat roles. Warren called it an extraordinary reversal and asked a simple but devastating question. What happened in those 32 days that caused such a fundamental change in values after more than a decade of consistency? Hegseth responded by returning to the word standards, arguing that his concern has always been about maintaining combat readiness and that political priorities over the last several years weakened those standards. But Warren pressed harder. She quoted his own words again and pointed out that in those statements there was no mention of standards tied to measurable performance. There was no conditional language. There was only exclusion. She then delivered one of the sharpest lines of the hearing. She noted that the only obvious event in that 32-day window was Hegseth receiving a nomination from President Trump. She said she had heard of deathbed conversions, but this was the first time she had seen a nomination conversion. Subscribe now if you want unfiltered moments like this explained in full context. Warren also raised the concern many service members may share. If Hegseth could reverse deeply held views so quickly to secure confirmation, what assurance is there that he would not revert back to those views once in office? The exchange then shifted to ethics and accountability. Warren pointed out that Hegseth himself has written that retired generals should be barred from working in the defense industry for 10 years due to the corrosive effects of the revolving door between the Pentagon and defense contractors. She asked whether he would commit to the same restriction for himself when leaving the Defense Department. Hegseth declined to give a yes or no answer, saying he would consult with the president and that it was not something he had considered. When Warren pointed out that he would be in charge of the generals he criticizes, he responded by saying he is not a general. Warren closed by highlighting the contradiction. In her view, Hegseth was willing to impose strict ethical standards on others, but unwilling to bind himself to the same rules. This exchange was not about policy nuance. It was about trust, credibility, and whether words spoken over many years should outweigh words spoken after a nomination. Subscribe to stay with us as this confirmation process continues. We will keep breaking down what these moments mean for the military, for women in uniform, and for the future of Pentagon leadership.